Yo, what's shaking, theorists? It's your man CJ Williams for Culturalist Theory, and today we're taking a trip through the grimy North Memphis streets to rank the catalog of rapper turned Reverend Project Pat. As usual, we're keeping it strictly albums, so you won't find the Appeal mixtape or the Murderers and Robbers compilation here, only his 9 full-length LPs. Now make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons in that order to support, and join our Discord if you never thought you'd see the day we made a Project Pat list. Yo, with that out the way, let's get to it. Number 9, Mista Don't Play 2, Everything's Money. If you've been following the channel long enough, you know how we feel about sequels to classics. They almost always are letdowns. Blueprint 2, Slim Shady LP 2 come to mind, but if you need further evidence, I present to you Mista Don't Play 2. Pat's 8th album, first without the Hypnotized Minds logo present, is 17 tracks of uninspired, repetitive production and hooks. Juicy J is listed as a co-producer on most of the songs, but we can't tell. Well, we'll speak more on how important production is when it comes to Pat in a minute. You can usually rely on Pat to have a recognizable single, and Twerk It is the closest thing to a radio hit here. It features the usually reliable Ty Dolla $ign and Taylor Gang's head honcho Wiz Khalifa, and the Who Knew They Had a Song Together Wale, but it's still a swing and a miss. The best record comes late in the track list with Be a G featuring Juicy J and Montgomery, Alabama's finest, the late Doe B. All three do what they're supposed to over top of trunk-rattling Mike Will Made It beat, giving us a taste of what would be a mixtape match made in heaven between Pat and Mike Will. Now that's an album we'd sign up for today with no hesitation. There's been a slight resurgence of Pat in recent years thanks to features from Drake and 21 Savage borrowing his signature flows, so you never know. It's a photo finish for last place though, but attempting to tie this to the original sealed the deal. Number 8, M.O.B. Pat's latest album released in 2017, and we're not gonna hold you. It's a rough listen. With all due respect to Ecstasy Beats, they aren't Juicy J and DJ Paul, and it hinders this project in the worst way. Many of the record's production is frankly boring and predictable. Mix that with Project Pat's repetitive hooks and this album didn't stand a chance. Now let's be clear, we've knocked these last two projects for having repetitive hooks. That's not always a bad thing. Call and response choruses are a signature for 3 6 Mafia, Lil Jon, and Project Pat. All very successful acts. The problem lies when the production doesn't add any layers to said hooks. You have to incorporate some imagination somewhere, and it's just not here. Pat goes for solo basically the entire runtime, with only Juicy and the late Young Dolph making guest appearances. Many of the records have Pat giving us 3/16s, and when you combine that with the weak production, the album feels like a slow burn movie that never pays off. If you have to play a record or two, spend money with Juicy J or Extortion Game, then promptly exit stage left. Number 7, Walkin Bankroll. Boy, what a difference production makes. Originally titled Gimme Me, 2007's Walkin Bankroll is more of what we're used to when you think Project Pat albums. We alluded earlier to Pat's staple style of repetitive hooks. Again, not a bad thing, but dynamic production certainly helps. Thankfully, Juicy J and DJ Paul, probably the most underrated producers in hip-hop, do a much better job here than the non-HCP albums. Even though this isn't prime 666 production, it's almost like Pat feels more energetic when his fam is behind the boards. Joints like Powder, See You Fall, and Ready for Whatever benefit greatly from their Midas touch. An underrated facet of Project Pat is that he doesn't heavily rely on a ton of features. He has a clip full of flows that he switches like clothes, so every verse feels refreshing. You'll only see 3 guest appearances here, with 3 6 Mafia, DJ Paul playing hook duty on a song or two, and a 16 from the late Pimp C. This is one of Chad's final guest appearances before passing just 2 months later. It's CT, so you know we must keep it real, and there are definitely some skips. While nothing here is overtly garbage, we're super good on Wagon Wheels and Bullfrog Yay. So yes, it's the worst of Pat's HCP releases, but the project is still pretty solid. Number 6, Loud Pack. The last release from Pat and his Hypnotized Camp compadres came in 2011's underrated Loud Pack. We say underrated because by the time this album dropped, the glory days of HCP were long gone. As a matter of fact, this is the second to last release on the label before folding in 2012. The final being still doubted by Little White, just in case the question comes up while you're on Jeopardy. On Loud Pack, Pat is as sharp as ever with catchy flows and comical cadences that make his verses unique enough, even though the subject matter may not vary much. For example, it's robbing season in the hood 24/7 on joints like Penitentiary Chances, I Play Dope Boy, and Flashin'. Pat has outlined that several times in the past, but his stutter pattern mixed with quasi-melodic flow complement the drum and kick rolls in the production perfectly, making repeat listens mandatory. Theory. And I don't know about you, but whenever Juicy J says play me some pimpin', man, our ears perk up because we know a soulful slap is quick to follow, and Ghetty Green is no exception. Spin the block one time if you slept on this low-key banger. Number 5, Real Recognize Real. You know that Project Pat album that banged way harder than you expected and nobody listened when you tried to tell them? Well, CT has your back, and that album is Real Recognize Real, and you were right. Coming off the heels of the slightly disappointing Walkin bankroll, Real served as a reminder of what made Project Pat dope in the first place. Authentic down south gangster lyrics and a one-of-one flow over top dynamic production courtesy of you-know-who. Opening up the budget a smidge, Pat shelled a few coins for go-to trappers at the time, OJ the Juice Man and Gucci Mane on Keep It Hood and Bang Smack respectively. There's plenty of heat to go around in the form of slaps like Ain't Scared of You, Slick Hater, and Dead in the Streets, the last being the standout. The album falters when Pat tries to bring the ladies to the trap. Horny and Pogo Stick are the 2 worst songs on the album by a mile. That's okay, you can spin Chopper to Your Dome an extra 2 times to make up for those skips. Another super solid entry in the underrated catalog of Project Pat. Number 4, Crook by the Book. You know you're in for a banging HCP album when its opening track is a skit. Another sign heat is on the horizon is when Mr. Big blesses the first record like he did on I Ain't Going Back to Jail. A fitting first song as Crook by the Book was the first album from Pat after serving a 3-year prison sentence for violating parole. Gotta leave the straps at home when you on papers, player. More on why he was on papers to begin with a little later. But back to the album. Sitting Down didn't rust his pen cause Pat came out sounding like he did before he went in. Per usual for a mid-2000s Pat album, the collabs were sparse and somewhat random, but they worked. The Snowman and Life Jennings pop up on Tell Tell Tell, Pimp C on Like a Player, and Beanie Siegel blesses Purple, a banging ode to the liquid gold of the same color. Speaking of Purple, that beat is crazy. Paul and Juicy showed their ass this album, specifically on tracks like that where they switched up the snares and went with snaps. An interesting move that pays off. The album is mostly remembered for its singles Good Googly Moogly and Raising the Projects. One of those is way better than the other. I'll let you guess which. If you're putting together a Project Pat playlist, you may proceed to copy and paste Cocaine and How It Goes in the Gutter from here right on there. You're welcome. Number 3, Layin the Smackdown. Yo, have we entered the classic zone with Project Pat? TBD on that, but one thing's for certain. If you're a fan, then there's a good chance you got the same top 3 that we do. While Smackdown didn't make a splash commercially as this album dropped a few months into Pat's bid, so promotion was limited, that didn't matter to real ones. It debuted at number 12 with 70K records sold first week thanks to the single Make That Ass Clap with the king of making backsides bounce, Juvenile. But the track that this album is probably most remembered for is Choose You, better known as the original International Players Anthem. The UGK and Outkast classic was originally a Pat solo record. The story goes, Pimp C called DJ Paul from jail and said the first song he wanted to record was over that beat. He felt it had hit potential. The beat was then reused 5 years later to what became one of the more popular rap records of the mid-2000s. Yo, fun fact, Pimp C wanted to form a group with UGK and 3-6 to be named Underground Mafia. Let us know down in the comments, would you have been down to hear that? Back to the subject at hand though. This album was tough. We get joints to shut the club down like Fight and Weak Niggas, records to light up to like Smoking Get High and Smoking Out, and of course songs that slap in the whip like On Nigga. Smackdown would mark the last time we'd get a posse song on a Pat project, and we get the rare song for the ladies that didn't involve a dance floor would Take the Charge, which had us wondering why he didn't dip into that bag a little more, because that's one of the best records on the album. All in all, his brief vacation to prison and 3-6 crossing over to Hollywood around the same time may have overshadowed this complete banger of an album, but calling it classic may be overselling it. As for the next album on our list though, number 2, Ghetty Green. The first words heard on Project Pat's debut album Ghetty Green are "It's on for the 1999," and within 20 seconds you knew he wasn't lying. Whether you were born and raised in the area or from a whole nother part of the country, I guarantee you were yelling right alongside those North Memphis chants on the opening track. Originally part of the Killer Clan Kazi, Pat stepped out and released one of the more slept-on debut albums the South has seen. Here we get the first of many I Hate Snitches tracks in the banger 528 Cash. If you know Pat's story, then you can understand his disdain for tattletellers. According to the now preacher Pat, he got sentenced to 9 years in jail prior to this record due to the testimony of his friend turned co-defendant. Well, I know that Cody hate to see a Pat album coming because you can bet there'll be at least one song dedicated to rats. Actually, half the album was written while Pat was on vacation due to said testimony. Here we get contributions from HCP staples like DJ Paul, Pat's brother Juicy J, Gangsta Boo, and Lord Infamous. But you also get collabs outside the camp like Crucial Conflict, Cash Money Millionaires, Crazy Bone, and Noriega. While all these collabs work, somebody gotta ask Nori why he thought it was cool to use recycled bars. If you're familiar with Nori's Melvin Flint album, then his verse on Pat's Represented should sound very familiar as he used the same lines just a month prior on Flint's Play That Shit.
You my woody, I'm your woody, fuck with us, we leave the nigga fucking holy, yo, you my woody, I'm your woody, fuck with us, we leave the nigga fucking holy.
Yo, you got some splaining to do, Nori. Production is superb from front to back, and we don't just mean the beats. We get memorable skits like Francis Menances with Rinky Dink Records combined with creative song setups. Keep the beginning of the aforementioned 528 Cash, where a canary is looking for a quick come up at the expense of a fellow crook. The phone number dialed is interrupted by a busy signal that then serves as a metronome through the runtime of the song. Super dope. The record's influence even crossed borders as Drake quoted Pat on Blockboy JB's Look Alive by flipping the opening lines of Out There.
If your ass step, I'ma be downtown, man. 4th floor bound, man. That's if I get caught, man.
If I fucked up, I'ma be downtown, man. 4th floor bound, man. That's if I get caught, man.
Maybe Drizzy spent more time in Memphis with his pops than we give him credit for. Cause what you know about that, Drake? And despite what the source thought, we at CT can say it with our chest that Ghetty Green is a down south classic. Number 1, Mista Don't Play, everything's working. What's it called when you have the super rare instance where the sequel is better than the already fire original? Reverse sophomore jinx? I don't know, but that actually sounds like a dope list. And you can better believe Pat's sophomore album, Mista Don't Play, will be on it. Street slaps are aplenty. You want to go ski mask with Crunchy Black, or if you ain't from my hood, featuring Paul and Juicy. Pat can go for Dolo 2 on We Ain't Scared Ho, Aggravated Robbery, and the storytelling We Can Get Gangster. We even get singing on the album, a rarity for a Pat CD normally stuffed with gangster shit. Life We Live was a nice change of pace. 2 of Pat's most popular singles were birthed from this album, Don't Save Her and Chicken Head. The former features another memorable verse from the best worst rapper of all time, Crunchy Black. The latter features an entertaining roasting session between Pat and LeChat. Yo, if you had a choice, you think Gangsta Boo would have sounded better? Let's be clear, the version we got was the shit, but Boo normally was the go-to lady for HCP, and she's missing altogether from this album, even the Posse song. Yo, leave a comment below what you think. Inquiring minds want to know. Now, if we had to nitpick with the album, it would be how they opened it. Why put Chicken Head as the first song, then a skit, then Cheese and Dope? It should have been the shortened version of the Out There skit first, going right into the banger Cheese and Dope, then the single Chicken Head. Just copy and paste what you did with Ghetty Green. You know what they say about things that aren't broke, but again, they're called nitpicks for a reason. Minor hiccups like that are really the only issues we can find, as skips are held to a minimum with this otherwise banger of an album. And for those keeping score, that's another down south classic for Project Pizzat. Yo, more than likely, if you made it this far, you're a fan of the 3-6 sound. Lucky for you, we have a video in the influential group's albums ranked here. Don't forget to continue the combo in the Discord, man. Link is below. Until the next time, it's your man CJ for CT. I'm out.